and welcome to the F&O Show on Bloomberg Quint Live, India's first digital live streaming business news service. I'm Darshan Mehta. Good morning, Agam.
Good morning, Darshan. I'm Agam Vakil. Here are the headlines. Markets are off to a positive start. The Nifty is reclaimed 11,400 and the Nifty Bank is leading the upside. Glenmark and Sun TV are among the stocks which are seeing a decline in open interest today. Jet Airways is among the top F&O movers after lenders take control of the airline with 1,500 crores fund infusion. And DLF is trading with gains on the news of its latest fundraising plans.
Okay, let's take a look at what the markets are doing at this point of time. The markets seem to be doing well. We are all at the 11,400 mark, at least as far as the Nifty futures is concerned. There is enough traction that's happening on the Nifty futures. That's up almost 30 points. Take a look at the Nifty Bank and see what exactly the Nifty Bank is managing to do. And we are seeing traction there also. The Nifty Bank is almost at the 29,500 mark in trade at a premium of almost 40 points. Where are positions being taken? Let's take a look at the positions. Again, you're seeing that at 11,000 there is activity that's happening. Put writers are active in trade, and at 11,100 to higher levels there is call writing that's happening at this point of time. What is the traction at this point of time? Rollovers at 37%. That's the trend that we're seeing. But Agam, stock specific. Okay, this seems to be the right plate. Again, you're seeing that in today's trade, put writers are active at 11,300 and 400, giving support to the market, and call writers are shedding positions at higher level. Agam, stock specific wise, what do you see?
Sure. Well, about 3 sessions left to go for expiry, so I'm sure we won't have as much in terms of gainers in open interest as much we will have in losers in OI. But let's pull up that list. So Jet Airways, BHEL, and GMR Infra among the a few which are actually seeing substantial traction. Jet Airways, of course, on expected lines. That's up another 6.5% after the 12.5% gains that we saw yesterday. But let's take a look at those stocks which are seeing substantial unwinding. Glenmark Pharma, LIC Housing Finance, and Sun TV among many others. We'll be watching out for the rollover numbers for a lot of these stocks as well. Shriram Transport Finance and Bajaj, or pardon me, Godrej Industries among others, which are also seeing a significant decline. I reckon the stock of the day will continue to be Jet Airways on the back of all the news flow that has come through and the kind of strength that we saw yesterday as well as in today's day of trade. So we'll be watching out for cues there, Darshan.
Okay, so those are the stocks that we'll talk about. Let's take a look at the stocks futures that we will be talking about in trade today. So we'll talk about DLF. The QIP is there in trade, and the response seems to be pretty good at this point of time. That's what the price action is indicating. We talk about whether there should be any kind of pair trade between Jet Airways and Indigo. Godrej Industries is seeing decent open interest build up in trade today. What's the traction in Godrej Industries? That's something that we want to talk about. The other stock that we want to talk about is the two-wheeler space. Again, you know, a lot of two-wheelers are down in trade. What should happen there? Strong traction in this series for NCC, and we talk about counters like NTPC, which is up almost 28% from the Feb lows, and United Breweries ahead of the summer season. What should happen? So these are the stocks that we'll talk about. But before we get a guest on the show, here's a reminder: if you have any queries regarding the futures and option market, you can call us on 02245404141 or write to us on Twitter, Facebook with the AskPQ hashtag.
And on that note, let's get in our experts for the day. We have joining us on the show Amit Shah of Bobcap Markets and Nirav Chheda of Nirmal. Good morning to both of you, and thanks for joining in. Nirav, I'm going to start with you. Your view on the markets now, and how are you going to go about things?
Yeah. Good morning, Agam and Darshan. I believe Nifty has broken out of a long range, a long consolidation, and very likely Nifty is going to go upwards towards the 11,800 odd levels in the short to medium term. Yes, there was a correction, but after a 600 or 700 point rally, a correction is always due. It is always good to have 100 200 point correction. It is healthy. So I believe Nifty is likely to go upwards, and one should be buying even at these levels. I believe Nifty can reach 11,550 before the expiry, so one can buy at current levels with a stop loss of 11,280, which seems to be a good support area on the downside. If you see this month, this has been a put heavy month. The put strikes from 11,600 odd levels downwards all have more than 20-25 lakh shares in open interest, and that is a good sign. On the call front, only the 11,600 call strike has about 35 lakh shares. So again, I believe Nifty can reach around 11,500, 550 odd levels before expiry. So one should be going longs.
Okay, that's the sense that you're getting in as far as the Nifty is concerned from Nirav. Amit, good morning. What is the sense that you're getting in from this market?
Good morning, Darshan. I would agree on the positive bias in the market. However, last couple of days, we have seen the market breadth as well as some profit booking activity in the market, but that is part and parcel because of the strong rally what we have seen since 10,800 odd. So this is more of a retracement, I would consider, rather than some heavy profit booking which it suggested. So keeping the positive bias, but however, I would wait for this gap which was created yesterday, which gets filled above 11,450 odd. So in my sense, till the time 11,450 is not taken off, the market is likely to see some time consolidation, where on the downside, there is a good supportive action around 11,300 to 11,220 odd zone. Any level towards that will still be considered as a buying opportunity or time consolidation. In my sense, if we have a close above 11,370 for this expiry on the spot Nifty, it will be treated as a positive sign, and we can see some follow-up buying momentum as early as the start of the April series. Possibility, if that happens, then we can see a fresh high ahead of the April series moving on. So overall, the VIX has been stagnant towards 16 odd levels. We are not seeing much of an activity there. Put writing activity has showed conviction, and as well as the market breadth has remained on the positive side, supported by a strong inflows by the FIs. So till the time these levels are not violated, which is mainly 11,220 on the downside, I'll maintain a positive stance on the market with a fresh entry at above 11,450.
Okay, so in that case, Amit, what stocks do you like? What stocks interest you today?
So I have a buy recommendation on IGL. Now the stock has seen a significant traction in open interest yesterday. The open interest surged close to around 14% odd, and has in fact added more 7.5% today since the opening bell. So I feel the stock is on the verge of it has given a trendline breakout which was close to around 300 odd. That would now act as a key support for the stock, and the more it sustains above 305, 308 levels, the stock is poised for a short-term momentum towards 320 and positionally towards 340 levels on the higher side. So 301 will act as a good support level, and any decline towards 305, 308 should be utilized to enter into the trade. My second recommendation is a sell on Wipro. Now the stock has seen a significant rise in the open interest since the inception of the March series, and even if you look at the technical front, the stock has given a false breakout which was close to around 285, 290 odd. And after breaking 270 mark, it has started on a gap down note. The gap is yet to be filled. So kind of an inverted flag formation, which is a negative formation, where the stop loss is indicative around 260 odd. And the more it sustains at these levels, the possibility of testing 245, 240 would remain quite on the higher side. I expect a short rollovers happening in this space.
Okay, that's the sense that Amit is getting. Nirav, what are the stocks that you want to talk about?
Yeah. See, both are buy calls. I believe Indiabulls Housing Finance, in the whole rally hasn't participated, and now is the time for the stock to participate. One thing to note in this stock is, in the last about 10-15 weeks that it has traded, it has actually surpassed lifetime high volumes, in this 15 weeks. The volumes have been very, very high, and, such patterns have occurred only once earlier in Indiabulls Housing Finance, and after that, it had moved up about 150% from there on. So I believe Indiabulls Housing Finance is one stock to watch out for the next 1 or 2 months. It can really push up towards the 1,000-1,200 odd levels. However, from a trading perspective, one can buy the April futures at current levels. I believe this stock has good support around the 715 odd level, so you can keep that stop loss, and it can fire up towards 780 probably in this week. in the coming expiry, probably you will see this stock around 850, 900 odd levels is what I think. The second stock is MGL. See, it is making a brilliant pattern, kind of a rounding formation pattern where a stock consolidates for a fair bit, say about 6-7 months in a particular range, and then it starts to break out, and that breakout comes slowly. So many people do not recognize that the stock is moving up, but every week on week you will see about 1 or 2% rise in that particular stock. I believe this stock is now headed towards the 1100 odd levels. It is above the breakout of about 980, so one can buy the stock, the April futures, with a stop loss of around 975 and a possible target of 1020 for this week.
Okay, well, so these are some of the ideas that are coming in from our experts, and some very interesting ones too. Of course, both our experts have one stock each from the gas space. One is IGL and the other one is MGL. But there are a bunch of stocks that we want to address too. I'm going to talk about one stock which has actually seen significant amount of traction, that has been showing up on your screen almost every second day, and that's NTPC. What's really happened in NTPC is overall, over the previous few days, there has been a substantial upward movement. It's not every day that you actually see so much traction in the futures and options space, specifically with NTPC, which is why it looked like an interesting move. Of course, while we have seen a lot of gains in several of these other PSUs, a lot of these utility companies, NTPC is one thing that stands out. And again, I'm not as certain as to whether or not this is usually a very liquid futures counter, or it's just gotten in a lot of liquidity off late. And this is, of course, in the last 10 odd days, but there has been a little bit of a up move in the last 2 to 3 sessions. So let's pull up NTPC and talk about this one. Okay, Nirav, let me take up NTPC with you. What are your observations here? What's going on?
Yeah. See, NTPC for me is still in a negative pattern, but it is very close to breaking out. See, it is making a lower top, lower bottom formation, and its previous top was around the 145 odd levels. Now, every time what this stock does is, it comes very near to its previous top and then again starts to fall. So I do not want to be buying this stock at this moment, and looking at the stock, there's been good volumes from around 110 odd levels. So very likely it might be a breakout above 145 in the coming weeks, but as of now, I'll not be buying. I'll be waiting for a breakout, because this stock generally moves down from its previous top as well. If one wants to buy above 145, the stop loss should be around 135.
Okay, the other stock we want to talk about is DLF. Remember, the OFS opens today. Even though the pricing is at a discount, the price certainly does indicate that there is a lot of positive traction. It's above the 200 mark in trade. That's the spot for you. Open interest build up is decent. So what should one do on DLF? Amit, DLF, are the charts looking good?
See, the stock has been quite steadily making a lower top, lower bottom formation since the stock has broken down in Jan 2018 from 270 odd levels. And if you look at since the time the stock has started from Feb, it made a low close to 160 and has started moving up, making the first higher top. So that is a positive sign for the pullback. It has taken a good supportive action close to 186 to 190 odd levels. And the more it sustains above 200 mark, which is the breakout zone, I believe in the short run can see 215 to 222 levels on the higher side. But again, as I said, the stock, there are a few stocks where the risk of trading it's quite on the higher side. So similarly for DLF, the volatility can play a major role, where on the downside, even if it tests towards 190 odd, which is close to 5% downside, still the stock will maintain a positive stance. So the risk of trading will be higher, but it is showing a positive biasness.
Okay, from that we move on to United Breweries, and at least what we've seen in case of United Breweries of late is a little bit of subduedness coming through. The reason why I am talking about United Breweries is because it is testing its 200 daily moving average on the lower end for the first time since perhaps December. So while it hasn't really broken below that, it's also the fact that given the first quarter as well as the last quarter of this financial year and the first quarter of this coming financial year is very crucial for sales for United Breweries, considering it is in the beer business. The real question we are asking is that what's going on here? Is there a cool-off that is in play, or is this actually just one of those levels where we are likely to see a bounce off from here on? Amit, let me come back to you and take your reading on United Breweries. How are you expecting trade to pan out for this one?
Look at the positional structure in the stock, it's positive, and it has steadily over a longer term time frame, it has maintained a good higher bottom formation. But yes, off late, considering the stock has made irregular double top formation, which is close to around 1470 odd, and has seen some kind of a weakness from there on. It has immediately violated the key support of 1325, 1330 odd. So, and it has been sustaining below that from last couple of days. So the more it sustains below this, I feel there can be some more room for weakness, where on the downside 1260, 1250 levels can be tested.
Okay, the other stocks we want to talk about, look at Jet Airways. Now, Jet Airways has moved to the highest point of the day. It's up almost 7% on the futures. It's up almost 12%. Indigo is seeing a little bit of weakness. So, Nirav, does it make sense to do any kind of pair trade in Jet and Indigo?
Not really, actually. Looking at both the stocks, they're independently different. At this moment, Jet Airways looks like it is trading above a weekly breakout at that of about 250. Now we've got to see if in this week Jet closes about 250 levels. If it does, only then buy this stock, because generally what happens is in this whole downward rally, many times it has come up, but on a weekly basis it doesn't sustain, and again the selling comes in the next week. So again, I believe if 250 is broken above on a weekly Friday closing basis, only then by Jet Airways. It can go up towards the 400 odd levels. You can keep a stop loss of 250 after that. For Indigo, I believe it is in an upward trend, and it is making a higher top, higher bottom formation. Now shorting here will not make much sense, because you stand to lose here. So both stocks will be a buy on the long side only. So again, this stock of Indigo has a small resistance around 1395 odd levels. So if it crosses that level, you'll see 1500, 1550 levels coming soon. The volume structure in both Jet and Indigo is very, very good. So I believe one should be trading only on the long side.
All right. Well, from there, we talk about Nagarjuna Construction Company, or NCC as it's called now. What we're seeing is a lot of strength of late. Of course, today it hasn't moved that much, but we're certainly seeing some gains coming through over the previous, I would say, previous few weeks, because it's actually moved from levels of around 80, 84 back in around the first week of March to as much as 110 now. So that gain of course gained as much as 34% in the last 1 month. This gain is, of course, to a certain extent could be attributed to the significant flows that we've seen in the infrastructure space or as a whole. But what's going on with this one is there more strength left at this point in time. Amit, your observations on NCC, would you buy into this at these levels?
No, I would not buy into these levels. The reason is the risk to reward is not favorable at this point of time. Though the 50-day moving average has given a crossover to the 200-day moving average, which is suggesting as a positive sign. But if you look at the rally since, as you mentioned, from 84 onwards to almost 110 levels, it has been quite steep enough. So I believe that can be some kind of a price consolidation as well as time consolidation, where on the downside 103 is where there can be some supportive action from here on. So I would rather wait for some kind of a retracement to happen or a consolidation on the price and time wise to take a fresh view in this particular stock.
Okay, the next stock we want to talk about is actually the sector. The two-wheeler space is seeing a lot of negative traction. Yesterday we saw Hero MotoCorp trading at a 52-week low. Today in morning trade, Eicher, Bajaj, all of them were trading slightly weak in trade. Is there more downside for the two-wheeler space? Amit, you go on this one. What's your overall view on the sector, and which is the best short in this sector?
So I believe Hero MotoCorp can be a very good shot within the auto space. The stock has been making a steady lower top, lower bottom formation on a broader scale, and if you see the difference in the moving averages of 200 to 50-day moving average, it has been widening over a period of time. So that's a sign of a weakness. The more it sustains below 26, 25, 26,000, 2650 odd, the more weakness the stock can add on to. And breaking below 2550, I feel the stock is poised for another 5 to 7% downside from there on. In fact, if I have to play a pair trade within the auto space, I would be long on Bajaj Auto and short on Hero Motors. If I look at Bajaj Auto, though the stock has seen some kind of weakness, but it has been quite resilient on every decline. And since the time the stock has given a breakout about 2850, which was a crucial resistance, the stock has been maintaining above that level quite decisively with good volumes. So in fact, I would be a buyer in Bajaj Auto and sell Hero MotoCorp to make a pair trade.
That's interesting, and it's also not the first time that we have seen analysts recommend, a pair trade where it involves buying Bajaj Auto and shorting perhaps, the few of the other two-wheeler names as of now. But moving on, we also address Godrej Industries, which is having, well, I would say, a challenging run as of now. The reason here, of course, is that it's been trying to move above its 200 daily moving average over the previous few weeks, but it really hasn't done too much and hasn't been able to do that. However, it may have gained as much as 12% in the last 1 month, but there's been a little bit of a slowdown in the last few weeks. Nirav, do you think there is a move waiting to be made here? This is provided that it breaks above its, certain crucial levels. How are you reading Godrej Industries?
See, in the stocks, I'm someone who reads volumes very, very closely. In Godrej Industries, around those 420, 440 odd levels, the weekly volumes had really picked up, and from there, the stock hasn't broken below those levels. Now, I take that as a positive. I believe that levels will not be broken in a hurry. Having said that, it is also making a higher top, higher bottom formation on the daily from say 480 odd onwards. There is a resistance around 560, which is its previous top. Also, as you said, the 200-day moving average is there. But I will still take the punt. I think one should be buying Godrej Industries at current levels as well. I think both these levels will be broken very soon. Godrej Industries can go up towards the 600 odd levels. It is a good stock. One can buy at current levels with a stop loss of around 520.
Okay, pull up GMR Infra, and that seems to be doing well in today's trade. It's up almost 9% on decent open interest build-up. Amit, would you recommend buying GMR Infra at this point of time, or it's an avoid for you?
So completely, this is an avoid counter. These kind of counters do witness volatility on both the sides. Today it's 9% up, but some of the times the resistance is so stiff enough that even it can correct deep enough. So I would avoid these kind of counters who has been taking a lot of consolidation over very longer time frame. In fact, it has been quite making a basing formation from between 14 to 23 with volatility at both the ends. So I would avoid for a trading as well as for a long-term delivery bet for this kind of space.
All right. Well, it's been 1 hour into the session. Let's conclude by asking our experts about anything interesting that's showing up on their screen. Amit, I'll come back to you. Anything that's catching your eye right now?
I'm liking Pidilite Industries. The stock has seen a good traction in open interest, and even the open interest today has surged close to around 6.5% odd. Has made a kind of a flag kind of a formation, and it's near to its all-time high, which is close to 1220 odd or 1210 odd. So I believe the stock has a very good support around 1160, 1165 odd, and sustaining about 1200. The stock is poised for 1280 to 1300 levels. So can be a good delivery-based idea for the April series.
Okay, and Nirav, anything that you are spotting apart from the stocks that we've discussed?
Yeah, the banking space at this moment, especially the private banks, look very good at this moment. I believe Axis Bank, ICICI Bank stand to gain another 4-5% in the next 2-3 days. So one can look into it. Some incremental open interest has been, gone into these stocks in the past few days and weeks. So these stocks are now in momentum. One can buy these stocks. ICICI Bank can go up towards 410 odd, and Axis Bank can go up towards the 770 odd level. So one can buy those.
Okay, folks, on that note, we conclude this session. Amit, Shah, Nirav, Chheda, thank you so much for joining us and taking us through your views on the markets. But as for you guys, for more updates on the F&O space, you can check our website out, bloombergquint.com, especially the futures and options pages, where you'll have plenty of data for you to go through and peruse. And that's a wrap on this edition of the F&O Show. But for more news and updates, stay tuned to Bloomberg Quint.